We are recording. So, Breakfast Club, it was you a pick. Where did it come from? Are you a fan?
Yeah. I think out of all like the rite of passage,
Coming of age
teen films, coming of age films, I think this one's probably the best for me.
When you say, do you just mean best film overall, or are you talking about most impactful?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we'll get onto that. I'll get onto sort of the gritty details in a bit, but I think written by John Hughes, I think, which is always a good start. And it touches upon sort of every social group that you can think of, and even the adults to a certain extent. And I'll talk about this in a minute, but yeah, big fan.
Prog, what about you?
I don't know about Andrew, but I would rather have the gritty details up front. But
go on. No, I can't. If you want.
Okay.
This is the preamble before the main bite.
Yeah, Prog, what about you? Did you watch this growing up?
No, completely missed me when I was a kid.
I'll 100% agree with that as well. I'll jump on that bandwagon. It as a kid, and listeners to the podcast will know this, that I grew up with Prog. Ev was about 600 miles away in another part of the world. But I don't know if it's
colder part of the world.
Yeah. I don't know if it's our group of friends and we had a certain type of film growing up, but this one definitely passed me by.
No, it wasn't so much. I watched it when I was a kid. I think I first caught on to it when I was early teens. I think maybe.
So you could say that even though you didn't watch it when it first came out or years after that, you still watched it at a time in your life where it meant something.
Yeah. You could almost you can relate because you're almost the same age as the characters in the film anyway.
Yeah, the problem I had with the film originally, because I didn't watch it in my teenage years, I watched the film because it was always in the lists of most influential, best film, best high school movie. So eventually I got around to the point where it was like, right, well, I've got to watch this film now. And I watched it and it didn't strike a chord with me because I wasn't of that age anymore. That's not to say, though, and I know we'll get into it, that's not to say that I dislike the film. And I don't think there are a lot of good things about it.
And I think you touch on a really good topic there, that, a lot of the films that we review on the podcast are films that mean something to us. And even if it is a shit film, very similar to what we discussed recently, and I'm not saying it's a shit film, that's the wrong word to use, but even if it's a film you don't particularly like, and we recently did Spaceballs, which Evan really enjoyed growing up, and me and Prog didn't really watch it, and then watched it in adulthood, and it passed us by. It's with this type of sort of film, you have, I think, some sort of emotional connection to it, and Prog is 100% right. If you didn't watch this growing up, maybe it's a different. It's funny enough, right? I haven't seen this film, or I didn't watch this film until years and years into adulthood. And I don't think I watched this film until I saw it, believe it or not, and don't shout at me on this, till I watched it while watching Pitch Perfect.
Perfect?
Pitch Perfect, the film with Anna Kendrick or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
They watch it in that because the guy says this is such an important film, you have to watch it, and blah 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 blah.
So you're saying you watched Breakfast Club because of Pitch Perfect?
Yeah. I don't know if I should admit that or not.
You
damage is done now.
No. If anything, you should be thankful for Pitch Perfect that it got you to watch Breakfast Club.
I think the main question is, why was I watching Pitch Perfect in the first place?
Hey, listen, if Rachel wants to watch a film,
I don't think Rachel's ever seen Pitch Perfect.
Oh, so you watch it on your own?
Oh, it's gruesome confessions here.
I love a song. I love a song or two in a film.
He probably starts practicing that cup thing that Anna Kendrick does.
Oh, I got
Like
that
we said-
nailed. Got it nailed.
Yeah.
Like we said a couple of times, and we'll continue to say, each to their own.
But anyway, the film passed me by, so I didn't watch it till later in life, and which I then revisited it recently, and I had totally forgotten about the film. And I will admit, I enjoyed it when I watched it the other day.
Oh, good.
It's as a film goes, not a lot happens. So the film has to engage with you through its dialogue, through its the chemistry between the characters and things. And for me, it did that. I think it's well written, and yes, so hats off. I personally think to John Hughes on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret that, well, it might be a secret until now, but we're all basically John Hughes fans, whether it's this film or one of the other ones he wrote or directed. I would agree with you that a lot of it is well written. I have got a couple of points with certain aspects, which we'll get into. But yeah, I liked it. I do. I mean, I liked it when I watched it the first time. It just didn't strike a chord with me. It just didn't get me emotionally. You know, it just didn't mean a lot to me when I watched it. As I said, probably because of the age I watched it at. But I do like the film. I think it's a good movie overall.
The one thing, while we're talking about John Hughes, you know, he did do a certain type of film, or he was known for a certain type of film back then. He did others, don't get me wrong, but you know, that sort of coming of age film he did quite often. And the one thing he did was set a lot of these films in the same fictional town of, what was it called?
Sherma.
Sherma, yeah. So Ferris Bueller's 16 Candles, although I've never seen 16 Candles, and Pretty in Pink.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So all of them were in the fictional town.
Well, he did Ferris Bueller straight after this, didn't he?
And this film,
I think I remember reading somewhere that he shot Breakfast Club the same time as Ferris Bueller's to save money, and he used the same crew.
Well, this film cost £1 million to make. The box office was 51 million.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable return.
Yeah.
So, Breakfast Club was initially going to be a series of films where they caught up with the same characters at different points within their lives, but obviously that never came to fruition. So
okay, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the favorite aspect of the film, Ev, since you do a film, kick us off.
Oh, go on. I got a few here, but one being what I touched on before, that the film is very well written in terms of that it handles pretty much every social group you can think of. I'm not going to say in life, but at least in a school environment. So you've got the sport guy in Emilio Estevez.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll stop you there. Only because they do. There's the line in the film, isn't it, where they say a brain, an athlete,
a criminal,
a basket case, a criminal, and a princess, or something in whatever order it is.
Yeah, right at the end where he's writing the letter to the teacher.
That's it.
Yeah, but even so, you've got the adults as well in the film, and there's only three essentially that you see properly, where you see Emilio Estevez's dad, who you find out he's very determined and he wants his son to be number one, and trying to get his son to live, or trying to live his life out through his son. The teacher, I can't remember his name now for the life.
Vernon,
that's it. Yeah. Who's you find in different points.
He's out of touch.
Yeah, and
I think. Sorry, but I'm just going to say, I think John Hughes wrote it in a way where where the assistant principal is supposed to encapsulate everything that the kids dislike in adults.
Yeah, but you also see that in the film that when he's giving the kids a bollocking, and he's seeing he's seeing that he's scared that those kids will be taken care of him when he's older. You can see he doesn't want to be the way he is, but he can't. By the facial expressions, like after he gives Bender all the detentions, and he goes out and you see his face like, oh, why did I do that? And then you've got the caretaker, Brian's dad, who's just pretty much going with the flow, so to speak.
It's not Brian's dad.
That's not Brian's dad, is it? I was going to say.
Yeah.
No. Bender makes a joke that it's Brian's dad.
Because that's Carl, isn't it?
Yeah.
Carl, yeah.
And Carl, I don't know if you noticed this, at the very beginning of the film, and you see various pictures on the wall and whatever, and one of them is like Man of the Year, and right in the middle of it
is him,
the caretaker.
Yeah.
I don't know what saying it is.
Oh, sorry. I don't know where I got that from. I thought it was Brian's dad because he said.
No. You obviously heard the dialogue. You've just missed. You've just you've done is you've just missed that it was a joke. That's all it was.
Oh, okay.
It's Judd Nelson's character is making a joke of Brian by claiming that is his dad. That's all that happened there. That's yeah. But I agree. I agree with you with something you said about the film is very good with the characters all giving like subtle glances and little looks and facial expressions after someone has said something. I think that's a very good aspect of the film and well sort of captured.
Yeah.
I'd like to know if that's written in the script, because I know from reading about the film that apparently they did a lot of rewriting as they were filming. And they did a few weeks of rehearsals and rewrote some of the script there, because obviously John Hughes wanted to have the input of the quote unquote kids, as it were, the actors, because he wanted to get it more realistic. But I don't know if the subtlety of the facial expressions and so on was deliberate, or whether it was just something he happened to capture, incidentally.
My favorite aspect is Richard Vernon, the vice principal or whatever role he is, the teacher himself. I think
assistant principal.
When he does that sort of bullhorn sign, his fingers are like freakily wide apart. It's unbelievable. But no, I think he's really good, and I do wonder whether they could have changed his character slightly towards the end. So he very much insults and brings down the kids, right? Which then brings out their insecurities. He sort of like, he obviously knows a little bit about each of them, and he just really hones in on that, which then brings out the rest of the film. But then by doing that brings the group together, because they're all vulnerable at some point within the film, which then brings us to that scene where they're all talking about something within their lives. It's quite powerful. And that scene where he's got Bender and he's locked him in that room, and he goes on him massively, and he more or less offers him out, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good scene.
It's so powerful. And all I was thinking at the time then, is he this amazing teacher that he's doing something that's going to change around that kid? Is he going to shock him so much, and then at the end of it sort of say to him, I did that on purpose, I was never going to let you hit me or what have you? But
I read it the other way. I read it that he genuinely he was trying to get a rise out of Bender, and I think the character Bender shits himself.
Yeah. No, and I agree. That's how it definitely came out. I just wonder whether they could have changed it. And
Oh, sorry. Right. Okay. You're
I'm
talking
glad
about
they
whether they could
didn't.
have rewritten this more subtle.
Yeah. But and all of a sudden, it would have been about the teacher and not about the kids if that had been the case.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah. Because I think there's an obviously the Richard Vernon's the character, he's not in it as much as he should be. Real, if it's set in reality, he'd be in that library with them all day. But of course, the film is supposed to be about the teenagers, isn't it? So you can't have him hanging around all the time.
Yeah. No, definitely. So moving on to favorite scene. Oh, sorry. So, Prague, what about yourself?
It was a choice between two for me. Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me. I can't watch the film. I can't think about the film without thinking about that song. That song is amazing. I mean, as soon as the drums kick in, you think about to bookend the film, they have the drum, they have the song playing, and it's I love it. I love the song, but I'm not picking that. After rewatching it, I'm going to pick the actors and actresses who play the five main characters. I think they do a really good job with what they got to do.
Well, yeah, to hold your attention for an hour and a half film or however long it is, where very little happens in the film and it's all more or less about dialogue. It shows how good the actors are. I personally think.
Yeah, I mean, rewatching it this time, the one actor I was quite struck by, he's never really been on my radar before, but I did actually really like Judd Nelson as the bender, the criminal. I thought he was really good. Although my praise of him has been tempered slightly after reading about the film, where I read that Nicolas Cage could have got the part, and I was brokenhearted because I love Nicolas Cage.
There would have certainly been a different intensity to the part. Judd Nelson.
It would have been more theatrical as well, so I think it might be taking out of the film a little bit more. But God, I love Nicolas Cage. I really want to do a podcast about this, where I think Nicolas Cage could improve every film.
There's a topic to talk about.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say about Judd Nelson, he's got massive nostrils. If you ever go back and watch the film, have a look at him. Jesus Christ.
Look at him. I thought Batman was going to come out at one point.
Right, moving on to favourite scene. Anyone want to go first?
Go Prague.
Go on.
Yeah, it was a choice between when the assistant, we've already spoken about it, where the assistant principal taunts Bender. But I am going to go for the extra detention scene.
Yeah.
Where it's almost the first semi-challenge between the both of them before you get to the scene where the assistant principal is taunting him. But I found the extra detention scene funny, and I quite like you immediately get their relationship and where it's going to go.
See, I found it quite cringy.
Did you?
Yeah, for me, I just felt like saying shut up, and maybe that's like, singing the praise of the film in the sense of maybe I felt like I was there and I just wanted to say to him shut up, and so. But
well,
yeah.
no, you were in a way acting like one of the characters.
Yeah.
Because all the other characters are almost pleading with him to stop, to pleading with Bender to stop. So you're not wrong in thinking what you thought. I was exactly the same. When you're watching it, you're like, oh, for God's sake, mate, just don't say anything. But I think it helps you understand. Because let's be honest, the Bender character is difficult to get along with all the way through the film. You have moments where you think, okay, maybe he's showing a softer side, or you think he might be changing slightly, but then he'll do something else where you think, God, this guy's a prick. And for all intents and purposes, he is.
Yeah, but it goes back to that thing where it's what are they saying? Trading places where it's like it's environmental breeding sort of thing. So it's basically he's putting up this front because his parents, in particular his dad, is the way he is, and he talks,
Well, no, he thinks anytime he's challenged, he's got to step up, doesn't he? He thinks he's got to put on this front, otherwise, he's a coward or he's worthless.
Ev, what about you? Favorite scene?
I got a load really. Two. Yeah, I say you could pick like the scene where Vernon's talking with the janitor, and it's how they're actually opening up to each other about their feelings for the future and all that lot. The scene where they're running through the halls, and it's got the what's that? His face. He's just like no. It's like a Danny DeVito meme. No.
That's in my bad category.
Oh no, it's just for the song. The song's amazing behind it.
Okay, right. So you're talking about the soundtrack, yeah.
Yeah, but I think I'm gonna pick two and merge them into one scene. So it's basically the almost group therapy thing where they start getting high and they're sort of they're opening up towards each other and having almost like a group therapy session where everyone's talking about what they did to get in and how certain people wouldn't talk to other social groups and whatever like that. And then straight after that, the dance scene where it's just I love it, and because the song's brilliant.
I absolutely hate the dance scene.
I'm not a fan of it either, simply because Emilio Estevez cannot dance. I don't
know. The only one that can dance is Molly Ringwald. She was all right, but that dance scene for me is cringeworthy.
I love it.
I tell you what, I dislike it even more because it comes after such an impactful scene as you put it really well, the group therapy scene.
Yeah.
I think that group therapy scene where they're all opening up, Bender's still being a prick, but can't get away from it.
Yeah, but I think he's not a prick for the entire thing, because after he has a go at Claire, the character, and like and someone says, "Oh, are we going to end up like our parents?" And then she's the first one to say, "No chance." He gives her like a nod of approval, just like So it's there's love there.
Love. I will say one thing though. Try and sort of not redeem Bender, but I will backtrack a little bit on what I've said about him being a bit of a prick. Is that what you find out he's doing is a teenage version of a kid pulling a girl's hair in the schoolyard. Because obviously you find out that he does actually fancy Claire or like Claire, and what the way he's treated. I'm not saying it's a exact sort of or parallel to that, but it's similar in a way, isn't it? Please tell me it is, yeah.
I get what you mean.
Thank you.
He's trying.
Yeah.
He's either hiding the fact that he likes her by trying to hurt her, or he's trying to attract her by the only way that he knows how.
Yeah.
So, my favorite scene, and we've mentioned a couple of them already. I do like that group therapy scene, and supposedly a lot of that was ad-libbed. So that's if that is the case, hats off to the actors.
Can I say one more thing about that group therapy scene? Sorry, I do like it, and I'm glad that we're talking about it in a positive light. I will say, though, that I do find the writing uneven, and you've just mentioned that the scene, for the most part, was born out of not so much as ad-libbing, but them going over the script and rewriting it and having the actors not participate. What's the word?
Improvise.
Contribute. Yeah. So the actors contributing towards what was put into that scene. But I think because of that, it does feel uneven to me. There are moments in the scene where they change topic too suddenly for me. Like they're all having a go at Claire at one moment, and it seems really harsh. When you watching it back, it seemed a lot harsher than I remember it. And then snap the fingers, they're on to something else, and Claire's okay.
Yeah.
And I just found that a little bit jarring. That's all I wanted to say about that. Sorry, Rick. Go on.
I think Ali, I quite like the Ali bit in that. You know, where she says, you know, I had sex, I'm an infomaniac, I had sex with my therapist and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, I didn't do any of that. Yeah. I think all of a sudden you get a little bit more out of her character, which was, you know, which was quite nice to see. But the scene that I was going to pick now is the Vernon and Carl scene where they're having a beer and, you know, he's sort of, I think there's a realization when he gets questioned that he has become everything that the kids hate. And he's fallen into type. So not only do we have a type of the kids, you know, a brain, an athlete, a princess, blah, 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 we also have the stereotype hard-nosed teacher. And he's become that.
Yeah, it highlights as well the Carl's role in the film. He's almost the moral compass, isn't he?
Yeah. So, do you know who was originally going to be down to play him?
Who, Carl?
Yeah, Rick Moranis.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, can you?
For anyone just listening, Evan just had a nerdgasm.
To coin a phrase from the from a really good animated series called The Veil. Check it out on YouTube. Can you imagine that? Oh, can you imagine that? Oh.
But yeah, he was replaced down due to creative differences, supposedly.
Yeah, he was actually. Was he signed properly, or was he just in talks?
I'm not entirely sure that, but that's what I had read.
I would imagine if it's created differences, someone like Rick Moranis, who at the time was quite a big comedy star, he probably wanted to have more involvement in the film.
He probably wanted to play him a certain way as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
The guy who played Carl in the end, John Kaplos, something like that his name is.
John Capellos.
That's the one. He was in quite a few John Hughes films in the end. I think he was in 16 Candles, this, maybe St. Elmo's Fire. No, he didn't do St. Weird Science, sorry.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, something to be said about directors and their favourite actors. I think he has a small part, but I think he contributes quite a lot to the film within that.
Yeah.
So, moving on then. Would you change anything?
Yes.
Prog, go on.
The entire film. Scrap it all.
No. You know I like the film. I don't love the film. I like the film. But the reason I don't love it is because there are aspects I can't get on board with. I've got to highlight one thing in particular. Bender putting his head between Claire's legs, right? I've heard it said and read a couple of things about is problematic. I think it's only problematic in the sense of you have a different opinion of the character now if he were to do that as opposed to back then. I think you can still have a character do something like that. But as I've said before, and as I will continue to say, if you have a character doing that now, it just changes your opinion of the character as opposed to when it happened back then. The reason I bring this up is because John Hughes puts a panty shot in, and I don't think it shouldn't be in there. It does. You don't need it. You completely understand what the character is doing. You don't need to see a POV shot of what the character is seeing. I think that is gratuitous. So I wouldn't have that in.
I think that definitely shows the time as well. And there was a certain, during the 80s, a flash, you would often get a flash of breasts. You would often get a panty shot for no reason other than, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
And there's just, I agree with it. There's no need for it at all.
But that's not the main thing I would change, though. I would change Claire actually getting with Bender at the end. There is no way after 10 hours of tormenting her that she would go with him. There's just no way. I don't care, right, that in the closet or wherever he happens to have been put by the assistant principal, she goes to see him, right? And it's a good line. He says, I'm your parent, something along the lines of, I'm your parents' worst nightmare or something.
Yeah.
It'd be, hinting that it'd be good for her to go with him because of that fact. And she nods and agrees. And, you get the impression, and that's why that's part of the reason why she goes with him. It's a good line, don't get me wrong. But everything that's gone before it, I can't get on board with them two ending up together. There's just no way for me.
I'm going to agree with you, and it's one of the points that I've got. I would change the entire ending with regards to them two getting together, and Andy and Ali getting together.
I know why you're saying that. I would say it's okay for Andy and what's that?
Ali.
Alison, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's all right for Andy and Ali to get together. Just don't have her change her character. Why does she need to be dolled up for him to get with her? You either like her or
because, again, it's that sort of coming of age. Oh my God, she's taking her glasses off and let down her hair, and she's amazing. It's what She's All That and all those films sort of copied or parodied in future things.
I could have included that as well as part of my what would I change, but I
think you could have ended the film with them going their separate ways, and for me that would have been enough, right? But there's another point that I would have. I'm not saying I'd change it, but it's something that would be interesting to explore. The end point being, or the end scene being, what they like on Monday.
Yeah.
So whether, because they have the conversation in the group stuff, don't they? Whether on Monday, if they saw each other at the school gate, whether they would say hello. And
I think that's an interesting ending. That I quite like the idea of nobody goes with anyone. They all sort of part ways as they come out of the school. Maybe they, what it can be like in a movie. They all nod to each other or. Shake hands or whatever it happens to be, and then you see Monday morning, and the final 5 minutes of the film is Monday morning, and maybe, Bender completely ignores all of them or whatever it happens to be. I think that's a more interesting ending.
And they just revert back to character or stereotype. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ev, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with your gratuitous shots and having certainly Andy and Ali getting together. I don't mind Claire and Bender doing it, but I think
is there a reason why you don't mind Claire and Bender, but you don't like Andy?
Because I think there's next to no interaction between Andy and Ali throughout the entire day. Whereas with the other two, you definitely know there's something between them.
That's interesting because I can see where you're coming from. I would look at it the opposite though. I would say because of the constant interaction between Clay and Bender and it not being for the most part nice interactions, that's why I didn't believe them being together. But when Andy and Ali do interact, they seem to be on the same wavelength. So that's why I found that a little bit more believable. But I can see it from your point of view as well.
Yeah, but I think, like you were saying, if it was to end on, say, a Monday morning, and you see them all going into school, and they've all changed slightly in terms of that, they at least all acknowledge each other and are going to be friends, and going into school. I think that would probably be best.
You know what would be the greatest ending? Is if you saw Monday morning and Bender and Andy are just running up to each other and they hug.
Chest bumps.
So there's a dream sequence that was cut from the movie where Ali has a dream that Andy is a gluttonous Viking, Bender is a prisoner, Claire's a bride, Brian's an astronaut, and she is a vampire. I'm glad it was cut because I'm not entirely sure what that would brought to the film.
No, it's a bit too surreal, isn't it? That's the problem with dream sequences a lot of the time. It's not in keeping with the rest of the film.
Yeah. And then some other notable facts that I found out. Proggs mentioned that Nicolas Cage was down to play Bender at one point. Also, John Cusack was.
I love John Cusack.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was between John Cusack and Judd Nelson for the final for the part, and they originally picked John Cusack, but I think they were either in rehearsals or they did a test scene, and John Hughes didn't find John Cusack threatening enough for the Bender role, so that's why he brought in Judd Nelson.
Also, down to play Claire, either Robin Wright, Jodie Foster, or Laura Dern.
Laura Dern.
Dern, yeah, sorry, not Dean.
Yeah. Dern. Can you imagine Robin Wright playing Claire? Jesus. One of the most beautiful women ever on a screen.
So, moving on to the final question we always ask: would you recommend the film? I'll go first. I always ask the questions, and I never.
Go on.
I would recommend the film. I would recommend the film. Again, teenager upwards. I think if anyone's into films, I think they should watch it. It's as Proggs mentioned already, it's often up there on lists of must-watch films. There's a lot of people that have a lot of affection for this film, and I sort of get that, especially if you watched it growing up. But I still think you should watch it as an adult. I think John Hughes writes it and directs it well, and directs it well enough for you to enjoy it as a film. As I've mentioned already, not a lot happens in the film as regards to physically happen, but the dialogue helps you move along with it. So for me, yeah, I would recommend it.
I think the dialogue aspect and nothing happening is a good thing in this film. It allows you to explore the characters more. Go on, sorry, but
I was just about to say exactly that. It allows you to really get underneath the skin of a character and really understand who they are and why they're there in the film. A lot of films don't do that. A lot of films are, bish bash bosh, and it's the end of the film, and you don't find out anything about the character.
Yeah, I would recommend the film with a few caveats. I think to watch the film, I think it's important someone now watching it should understand the significance and the importance of the film when it first came out. I think if you do that, you won't be as harsh on the film as if you could be, because my problem with the film is I think there's better coming of age films and teen films now that have been released in the years since. So I think a film that came to my mind as soon as I finished watching it was Mean Girls. Like Mean Girls, I think it's a better film. Mean Girls, it's sharper, it's wittier, it's funnier. I think it's more engaging. And I think that's to the detriment of The Breakfast Club, because I think if you watch Mean Girls and then go and watch Breakfast Club, you might find Breakfast Club boring. So that's why I would say I think people should watch Breakfast Club, and I would recommend it, but I would say you need to watch it because it is an important film.
Mm.
It's not, even though it is of its time.
Yeah, I'd go along with that, to be honest. And I think this, to go a little bit deep in this in this day and age of social media and pressure put on kids at a young age, and speaking as a parent anyway, I think both this and the first season of 13 Reasons Why should be almost prescribed to kids, I think, at some point, because I think that it's now more than ever. I think it's with social media and all that stuff, you'll find it can be quite hard for kids, growing up or in the in school or whatever like that. And I think films such as this, it teaches them to appreciate the differences in people.
Yeah, if anything, it's an aid, isn't it? You could argue that the film is trying to shine a light on kids' worries, saying that it's okay to worry about things. Growing up, that's the thing about growing up, and at the time you think something is the most important thing in the world, and it isn't.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Like I reflecting on it now, if I look back at my teenage years, you think exams are so important, they're gonna make or break you in life, and they don't. There are other avenues.
Yeah.
Whether that's a failure of adults not getting that message across to children, that's a different discussion, isn't it? But I see where I agree with where you're coming from. That if you were to watch this as a kid, it's relatable even now, in the sense of you see someone in the same way that you're going through life, even though it is. I mean, you could argue it haven't aged well because it's just 5 white kids with, they're seeing problems where there actually shouldn't be problems.
Yeah.
Unless you look at the Bender character, because obviously he's having he's got an abusive home life, but at that moment for that kid, it is a major problem.
Yeah, but I think all the kids in general have got their own problem as such. That you take, obviously Bender with his home life is pretty bad, and his dad's abusive and whatever. But then you've got Claire, whose parents are going through a divorce, and they're just playing her off against one another. You've got Andy with his dad always making sure he's number one and he has to get ahead. Brian with his parents about his academic career, and Alison saying her parents just don't realize she's there or just ignore her. So it's just, they ignore me. Good show there. I'd recommend it.
Right. On that note, because that was quite a deep conversation you had.
I know, yeah. It's very deep for half 10.
I know we're supposed to keep it light-hearted.
I know, sorry. It's very deep for 10:30 on a Wednesday night.
Right, let's leave the listeners with those thoughts.
Thought-provoking.
It's Ev comes up with life lessons every now and again, doesn't he, on these podcasts?
We don't let him go deep too often, do we?
Yeah. Did you look to this film for your life lessons, Ev?
I did. Well, it's just the only life lesson I wanted was to walk across a field with one arm in the air. That's all I wanted to do.
Oh, because when I was watching it, I pigeonholed you as the princess.
Well, I have got the cleavage to actually do me lips.
Right. Definitely on that note, thank you all. Yeah, we always say subscribe and listen to us and whatever you
Yeah,
do.
like and subscribe.
That's the one. Prog needs to do these closing statements, not me. Anyway, thanks you all. Speak to you again soon, hopefully.
Ta-ra.